Surprise! We moved, and it happened way faster than I thought it was going to, and I'll explain all that. But what I really want to talk about today is this, the Switch Lite. After 6 months with this thing, do I still think you should buy one? Let's talk about it right now. What's up, guys? Welcome back, or welcome in for the first time. Do me a quick favor, please, if you would, leave a like on this video, and if you're not, make sure you get subscribed. And yeah, I'm obviously in a different place. It happened way faster than I thought it was going to, and I'm gonna explain that right now. But if you don't care about any of that stuff and you're just here for the Switch Lite stuff, I'm gonna leave a timestamp right here now, so go ahead and skip to that and I'll see you there. Okay, so now I know I told you guys I was gonna try to vlog all of this as it was happening, and I did. And I'll show you guys some of that B-roll now. But after I finished it, shot it all, got it back to the computer, and had a good look at it, I just realized that it really just was not up to par. So honestly, I just decided to cut it and move on. Now, for those of you who are wanting to see some of that vlog style stuff, it is coming. But I just wanted to make sure that it is the highest quality possible before I start putting it out to you guys. So it'll be a little bit longer, but it's definitely coming. But yeah, it's here. The walls are still bare. I haven't really put anything up yet, but it's not done. Obviously, there's nothing on the walls, but I actually started bringing stuff down to do some test footage the other day, like all the lighting and microphones and cameras and stuff. And you know, one thing just kind of led to another, and I really kind of like the setup I ended up with, and I didn't want to move it all back there, so I figured we might as well just go ahead and start shooting here. So yeah, it's not done, and this isn't the final look, but I think it's a good starting place, and I definitely think it's a little bit better set up than what we had in the basement. So let me know what you guys think of it down below, and let's go ahead and get on with the video. So the Switch Lite has been out for 6 months now, and the first video I actually posted on this channel was of the unboxing of this gray one here. Personally, I was really excited about the announcement and to get my hands on one, but it was far from universally accepted. Some people shared my excitement, some people just didn't care at all, and some people just wondered why it existed in the first place. Why would you buy a Switch that doesn't switch? So obviously it's not for everyone, but after 6 months, I wanted to go over my feelings towards the system and just really my experience using it. And I have to say, from the day that I picked this gray Switch up on launch day, I've probably used this about 90% more of the time than I do my normal Switch. And of course, not everybody's gonna feel that way, but for me, playing in handheld mode is the way I play my Switch most of the time anyway. And I do use my original Switch sometimes, but mostly when I'm using that, it's just to capture long periods of gameplay to use on a video for you guys. Speedway racing, it was pretty funny. Check it out. But anyway, I do plan to do more of those types of videos, so I guess I'll be using my Switch more for things like that. And like I said, it's not like I never use it in docked mode, because sometimes I do. But most of the time, it is handheld, and I do prefer to play in handheld mode on a Switch Lite. But at the same time, I will admit, there actually are certain games, well, I actually should say, control schemes that work better on a little bit bigger setup than a Switch Lite. For example, when I was playing Luigi's Mansion on the Switch Lite, my finger actually kept slipping over and touching the screen up here in the top corner, and that's where the map is. And if you touch it right there, the map actually expands down onto the screen. So I had that happen on the Switch Lite probably like 10, 15 times, and eventually ended up just switching over to the original Switch, and it stopped the problem altogether. So situations like that, I guess, yeah, it's good to have a bigger system, but I don't really run into those types of issues all that often. So in my case, yeah, for the way I like to play, the Switch Lite is definitely 100% something I still use 6 months later. I mean, honestly, I ended up buying another one. And I have to say, if that Animal Crossing Switch ended up being a Switch Lite instead, I would probably be holding that here too. I'm a really big fan of this form factor. I mentioned in my original video that I actually think this is more comfortable than the original Switch, and I still do think that. I really don't understand why I think that, because everything's smaller and closer together, but for some reason it just feels better to hold in your hand, in my opinion anyway. And now with the Skull & Co and Satisfy grips both out, I end up putting these into those 90% of the time anyway, so it's really, really comfortable now. Even better than it was before. Okay, so you guys know all the great things I have to say about the Switch Lite, but at the same time, I can say this thing isn't perfect. I mean, obviously it's missing some features, but how much has it actually hurt the experience of playing these games on a downgraded system? I mean, for me, obviously not that much, but let's go ahead and go down the list. Okay, the IR sensor, non-issue. I mean, really, there just aren't a lot of games that require the IR sensor, and honestly, none that I play. I mean, unless you're playing 1-2 Switch or building a Labo kit, you really just don't need the IR sensor, I don't think. I mean, I'm sure there's a few other games that use it, but I really just cannot even think of any right offhand. Which really doesn't matter anyway, because you have to have detachable Joy-Cons for those games anyway. Nintendo has made it very clear that those types of games will not work on the Switch Lite. So yeah, the IR sensor is definitely something I have not missed using the Switch Lite. The Switch Lite also doesn't have HD rumble, or any type of rumble for that matter, and this really hasn't made a big difference to me either. I mean, HD rumble is cool. When they actually use it, I'm a fan of it. But again, there's not really a ton of games that really utilize the HD rumble. Now, I know there are specific games like Mario Odyssey and a few others where there's definitely some points where HD rumble helps. And in those cases, I guess it's kind of a bummer that it doesn't have it, but they only happen every once in a while, and it's really not even that often. So it's not like you're really missing out on some crucial piece of gameplay that you absolutely have to have HD rumble for, you know? So I'm gonna go ahead and put that over with the IR sensor in the non-issue category. Now, something that actually confused me in the trailer they dropped for the Switch Lite originally is they said it did not have motion controls, which at first really bothered me, and it was almost a deal breaker for me. But then I kind of learned what Nintendo considers motion controls and what they don't, and I am still very confused by this. Maybe some of you guys can help me out. I guess gyro aiming is not something Nintendo considers as a motion control. So for example, in Breath of the Wild, you can lean your Switch forward and side to side and aim your bow just like you can with a regular Switch or a Pro controller. I mean, clearly I'm not fully versed in what Nintendo considers a motion control and what is not a motion control, because to me, leaning your system forward and backward and side to side, that seems like a motion control to me, but I guess not to Nintendo, so I don't know. But I'm glad that's in there because that's really all I was worried about, and it works great, so alright. So I guess motion controls, or at least what Nintendo considers to be motion controls, I'm okay with the Switch Lite not having. A slight downfall of the Switch Lite compared to the new V2 Switch is the battery life. While it's not terrible at all, 4 hours for what Nintendo and everyone else seems to consider the benchmark game in Breath of the Wild is plenty for me. It is very rare that I'm gonna sit down and play Breath of the Wild for more than 4 hours. And with most other games, you get a lot more time than that. So again, not really a huge issue to me, but there is no denying that the original Switch does have better battery life. So it's something I did want to mention. Now these last few things are probably gonna be the main issues people are gonna have with the Switch Lite. The biggest one, I think, is the fact that obviously it does not dock. You can't play a Switch Lite on a TV at all. Now again, for me, not a big issue. I am lucky enough to have an original Switch that I can go to if I need to play on the TV, which I've said sometimes I do like to do. Rarely, but I do like to do it sometimes. I mean, it is nice to have the option. So if that's something that is important to you, I mean, maybe that extra $100 is worth it just to go ahead and get the original Switch. And then if you end up going that route, you're also gonna end up getting the detachable Joy-Cons, which the Switch Lite obviously does not have either. And for people with families, maybe buying the original Switch might be the way to go. Having the option to not only play in handheld and docked mode, but also tabletop mode is definitely a bonus. If somebody wants to use the TV, they can just set the Switch up and pop the 2 Joy-Cons off, so you already have 2 controllers right there, and it's all in one package. So in a situation like that, having it all in that one package is nice, but each person having their own system also has its benefits as well. I mean, maybe they don't want to play the same game. There are a lot of different situations, obviously, and only you are going to know what your needs are for something like this. But in my opinion, the Switch Lite has a lot less moving parts. And that means a lot less parts to break and replace. Okay, so moving on, I said this in my review of the Switch Lite, and it was something that I really had a huge problem with. But actually, now that I've used it for a while, it's not as big of a deal, but it's still really annoying. And if you're someone who's looking to buy a Switch Lite as a second system, it's definitely something that you need to know. While I hoped some changes would come to the system they have for saves across different Switch systems, they haven't come. It's still the same, and yeah, it is pretty annoying. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you have, let's say, a Switch and a Switch Lite, and you use the same Nintendo account on both, you have to register one as the primary console and one as the secondary console. Now your primary, which is this one for me, can play digital games anywhere. It has no problem doing everything that a Switch can do anywhere. Now my original Switch and this one are both set up as secondary consoles. So if I take them out anywhere and I don't have an internet connection, it's not gonna let me play digital games. Every time you try to play digital games on a secondary console, it will actually go to the internet, check if you're allowed to play the games, and if you are, it'll let you get in. If you have no internet connection, you won't be playing those games. Normally this isn't an issue for me because this is the Switch I take with me when I leave the house. So it'll play every game, no problem. But there have been times when I've left the house and I've only had this or even the original Switch. And I've found a little bit of a workaround I'm gonna teach you guys how to do now. It's really simple. So you actually only need the internet for just a second, especially if you're just gonna sit down for a minute and, you know, play a couple rounds of a game or whatever, you know, if you're not gonna be playing for a long period of time. You only need the internet for a second, so what I do is actually turn the hotspot on my cell phone on, connect the Switch, let it hop on the internet and see that I'm allowed to play the game, and then you can pretty much turn the hotspot right back off. That is, unless you plan to be playing for a long time, because it will go back eventually and make you check again. But I think that takes about an hour, maybe a little bit longer. I'm not 100% sure. But like I said, usually when I'm doing stuff like this, if I'm out somewhere where there's not internet, I'm probably not gonna be there that long anyway, and if I'm playing, it's probably gonna be a pretty quick session. So that has worked for me, and if you have a hotspot on your phone, it'll definitely work for you. So my biggest issue with the Switch Lite isn't even really a Switch Lite problem. It's more of just a Nintendo problem. The way the cloud saves work, in my opinion, still is just so dumb. If you're playing on one Switch system, save that game, set it down, then maybe you come back later and pick up a different Switch and try to play the same game from the same place, you actually have to go into the menu, update the save data manually, then go back out and then go into the game and continue what you're doing. I really don't understand why this has not been streamlined and why we can't just have it automatically update, or at least give us the option to do it in the menu so we can turn it on and off if we want certain games to automatically update or whatever. I really don't see a reason why we can't do that. I mean, obviously we all know Nintendo needs a lot of updates for their online, their cloud saves, and honestly just their menu systems in general, but that's not what this video is about. Let's go ahead and get back into this. And you know, the problems I'm talking about here really only apply to people who are gonna be using more than one Switch. So the people who may already have a Switch and be thinking about buying a Switch Lite, this will affect you. If you're thinking about just trading your original Switch in for a Switch Lite, this isn't gonna affect you. As long as you're only using one system, everything will still be fine. Everything will save just normal, just how it does now. You don't have to worry about any of this. But again, it's an issue I deal with all the time, so I definitely wanted to make sure I got it in this video. So, is the Switch Lite worth picking up 6 months later in March 2020? If you play mostly in handheld mode, yeah, 100%. Not only do I think it's a better looking system, but it's also a way better size to be, you know, throwing in a backpack or taking with you on the go. Now, if you're watching this video and you don't have a Switch and you're trying to decide which one to get, the Switch or the Switch Lite, I would say stop and really think about what situations you're gonna be using it in. I mean, maybe having the option to play on a TV is something that you would need, but if not, yeah, all day, Switch Lite. I mean, not only are you gonna save $100, but you're still getting an extremely well-built, high-quality product. I mean, yeah, are you losing features? Of course. Are they important? To me, not really. If you're thinking about picking one up as a second console, keep in mind the stuff I said earlier about the primary and secondary systems and the cloud saves, but even with all that stuff that really annoys me, I still say go for it. So yeah, guys, the Switch Lite in 2020 still has my vote. So if you guys have any more questions about the Switch Lite at all, please make sure you guys leave them in the comments below. And also, let me know what you guys think about the new set. Like I said, we've still got a long way to go, but I think it's really coming together nice. So with all that said, thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a like on this video, make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.